Okay, so let's have a look at Java's PriorityQueue class. It's built into Java, and it's really quite easy to use. Again, once you've done it once or twice, it's pretty easy to use. So what we might do is create a little task class, and each task will have a description and maybe a priority, and we'll try and get Java's PriorityQueue to work with our tasks. Okay, it's pretty easy to do, so we'll create a class. I'm going to work all in one file here to keep it simple. So class task, and each task will have a private int priority and a private string description. Oops, just fix that case up there. Description, priority and description. Okay, so two private data items. We'll have a constructor. And this is going to set both those to set the priority to 0, set the description to blank. We might also have a parameterized constructor, public task. That's going to take in an integer priority and a string description. Oops, there we go. And it's going to set the class data to the values passed in. This.priority, this.priority. I'm typing in nearly darkness here. I might not look it on the camera, but I've got a very good camera here on me, and I'm typing in near darkness. That's why I keep hitting the wrong key. This.description is equal to description. Okay, so just a basic parameterized constructor. We're not doing anything fancy. We're not validating data. That would be something we'd do if this is a real application. And then we've got our accessor methods, or our getters. And our first one's going to return an integer. Get priority. Okay, and that's just going to return a priority, which is an integer. Therefore, the method's of type integer. Okay, another one called get description, public. And this one's a string method because it's returning a string. Description is a string. Get description, fix our case. Return description. All pretty average and normal so far. We can also do a setter and a getter, or the or the mutator methods. Set priority, set description. They're both void methods. Void, and it's going to go this dot priority equals priority. This dot description equals description. I'm just copying and pasting from above. The first one's going to be passed through a integer priority. And the second one's going to be passed through a description, which is a string. Okay, so there's my mutator methods. Public void set priority takes in an integer. This dot priority equals priority, and public void set description takes in a string. This dot description equals description, whatever was passed in. Pretty easy, pretty average so far. We'll do a two-string method. And I'm just going to return the priority plus a tab plus a description. If you want to format it and all that sort of stuff, you can do that if you want to. It's up to you guys or girls. Now our main class. So I'll call it our files that name there. Public class PriorityQueue tester. I think that's right. QUEUE, PriorityQueue tester. That matches. Yep. And we need a main method. Public static void main string square brackets args. Okay, there's our main method. We should be able to compile now. Control 1. Probably class PriorityQueue tester. Error. I've got the file names is public and should be declared in the file name PriorityQueue tester. So I've got the file names a bit out here. PriorityQueue test. Oh, test. Okay, so it's just test. There we go. Everything's compiling fine. Now, so what we want to do is create some objects of type task, add those to our priority queue, and we'll make it so each of our tasks has got a certain priority, and then we'll get the priority queue to display them back in processed or sorted order based on their priority. Okay, so there's no sort command in here. The priority queue takes care of inserting objects into the right order when you create the objects, when you add them to the queue. Okay, so we need to do an import. And the import's just java util.star, or if you want to import just a priority queue, you can as well. I was going to import java.util.star, and that brings all of the util package, which is including array list and arrays and all sorts of things like that. And PriorityQueue is one of those that's brought in automatically with that. So now we can do priority queues. PriorityQueue UE. What sort of data are we storing? We're storing task objects. So a priority queue of tasks equals new priority queue. So I'm using the Java 7 syntax here, where you can leave out the second data type here inside the less than greater than signs. If you're using Java 6 or earlier, you need to also put it in there like that. Doesn't hurt in Java 7 onwards, but you don't have to do it anyway. I'll leave it in there just in case anyone's using Java 6 or earlier. Now we want to add some tasks. So tasks.add, and it's a new task. We're creating a new task object, and we're passing through. Let's have a look at our constructor. We're passing through an integer and a string. Okay, and my first task might be, let's say it's number 1. Oops, it's an integer 1, and it's buy a quad bike. Okay, close the brackets for the new task, close the brackets for the add. So we've got one task. We'll have another task, and it's priority 2, where we're going to buy health insurance. And then we're going to, task 3 would be to learn tricks on quad bike. And so on, lots of practice and all sorts of things like that. And task 9 might be to jump quad bike over cars or something crazy like that. Okay, I've been watching some quad bike videos, so I've got quad bikes in the brain. So buy a quad bike might be the first, most important task. Buy some health insurance might be the next one. Learn tricks on a quad bike, and then the last task, right down the end, when you've done everything else, should be the jump quad bike over cars. Now I've happened to have added them in that order, and we'll change all this in a second. I'll just show you how it works for now. Let's do a compile, and we'll get an error message. Oh, Control 2, a runtime message. Okay, and task cannot be cast to Java lang comparable. So what Java's telling you there is, you're trying to set up a priority queue, but I don't know how to compare objects of type task in this case. So I need the task class to implement comparable. Okay, the comparable interface. Okay, so as soon as you see a message like that, you know you've got to implement comparable in your class. So let's do that. It's pretty easy. We just go implements comparable at the top there. Implements comparable. Okay, so I've just added that on the top of the class there, class task. And then we need a compare method, and it's an override, because we're going to make sure we are overriding a parent class's compare to method. We're going to make sure we get the fingerprints right. And it's a public method that returns an integer. It's called compare to with lowercase, and it takes in an object. Okay. So public int compare to, taking in an object, and we're putting the override there to get Java to do extra checking for us, like it did with toString, and Java will just make sure there's a public int compare to class that takes an object type object in the parent class there. In other words, we're talking about the comparable interface there. So we're just making sure we are implementing something that's contained in the parent class. So we're filling in all the dots there, and Java's just doing extra checking for us. Okay, compare to. So what we want to do is make sure. So we'll have an int result, and we'll set it equal to -1, and that just means they're not the same. Okay, just to start off with, and at the end we'll return whatever the result is. Okay, so now we're going to do checking in here to see what object is. Is it null? Is it actually a task object? And if it is a task object, how do the priorities compare of this to the current object that we're looking at? Okay, so if ob is equal to null, we're going to set we'll set result equal to -1 still. They're not the same. We don't know what it is, but they're not the same. Object's null, so they can't be equal or whatever. +1, -1, it's up to you to work out which one you want there. But it can't be 0, because 0 would indicate they're the same. So any value but 0. Else if... Now we want to make sure that object... We know object's not null now. We want to make sure object is of type task. And that's where we use our good old instance of. Instance of task. So if the object we're passed through is an instance of a task, in other words, it's a task object, we can then... Oh, was one other thing we want to check. Let's check the memory addresses. If the object is equal to the if this is equal to the object, in other words, the current class object is equal to the one that was passed into the method, then we're comparing the same memory addresses, and so the result has got to be 0. And that's because we're comparing memory addresses, or memory addresses are the same. So we are comparing an object to itself. And of course they're equal, so the result's got to be 0. Result of 0 indicates the comparison, the objects were the same. Okay, so result's 0. Now otherwise, if objects are instances of task, then we can actually check the result, the priority for each of these two items. So if get priority for the current object is less than the object dot get priority, then we're going to return -1. In other words, the priority for this is less than the object's priority. Okay, just a little comment there. Else, if they're the same, so if they're equal, so you make sure you use the right equals there, it's double equals. If they're equal, the priorities are equal, we can say they're the same. Is equal to, and the other one is we've got the current priority for the current object is greater than the object's priority, and that's returning 1 then. So else, the only other option is return 1. Return 1, and that means the priority for this object is greater than the object that was passed in. And that should be it. We're returning a result. That should be our result, our compare to method. So if object is equal to null, we're just going to return -1, or set the result to -1. Else, if this is equal to that object, in other words, we're trying to compare an object to itself, the result's 0. They've got to be the same memory address, same data. They've got to be the same. Result's 0. Otherwise, we're comparing the priorities. If the object is an instance of task, then we're going to compare the priorities. And if the priority for the current object is less than the priority for the object passed into the method, then we'll return -1. If they're the same, return 0. Otherwise, return 1. And that's pretty well it. That's a pretty well standard override of the compare to method. That's something you would have seen already if you've ever overridden the compare to method in your own work. It's pretty standard stuff. That's the same format they nearly all follow. It's just what you might call down here might vary. You might be comparing salaries or comparing start dates or who knows what. Okay, but generally it boils down to that sort of thing. Okay, so we should be able to compile now and run. Control 1. Get priority. Else if. Oops, I missed off an if. Else if. 2 errors. Oh, yes. So Java knows here we are talking about a task. Okay. Let's just have a look at that error so we can analyze it together. And the error says, cannot find symbol, get priority for object. Okay. Which is strange because we know object is a task object. So why can't it find the get priority method for that object? And the reason is it's passed through as an object. It's not passed through as a task, it's passed through as an object, which is the way you've got to do it to match up with the parent class's compare to method fingerprints in the comparable interface. Okay, so you're going to make that object. If you make that task, override won't work anymore. It'll come up with errors. Okay, so what you need to do is reassure Java that object is of type task. You can do that with multiple ways. You could create a new task here. I could call it object task equals, and what you're going to do, we'll get this code here, object, and what we'll do is we'll typecast that to a task. That should do it there. Okay, so we're telling Java to convert the object to a task object, and we're going to refer to it via the object task variable now. So just change object to object task here, and that's fine. That's all you need to do. Okay, so that's now working fine. We might as well add in some code to loop through our tasks and display them to the screen now that we've got a clean compile, so we'll do that as well. Okay, and we'll just use a for each loop for task in the tasks priority queue, and then we'll go system.out.println task. So we're going to printline the task to the screen. So that will call the toString method automatically because Java's looking for a string representation of the data. But if you just want to make that really clear, you can just go .toString. But you don't need to put the toString there. Java knows you want a string representation, and it will automatically look for and call that method if it's available. Okay, so I've just made it in there to make it explicit. Okay, so we can run that code now, and oops, let's just have a look at that. System.out.println, I left off the T. And there we go, there's our objects. So buy a quad bike, buy health insurance, learn tricks on a quad bike, and jump quad bikes over cars. Okay, got to make sure you do them in that order. You don't want to jump quad bikes over cars and then buy health insurance, okay, because it's too late. You're already in hospital. Okay, so what happens if the tasks, what happens if the priority worked the other way? That a high priority meant do it first, so here we got a high priority means do it last, and a low priority means do it first. What if we switch that around and made it so the high priority does it first? Well, I'll just say this is a new name, and I'll call it priority test high, and I'll change the name of the class here, priority test high. So we'll make it now that a high priority indicates do it first. So a priority of 10 might be buy quad bike first, buy health insurance might be next, and learn tricks on quad bike might be number 5, and jump quad bike over cars might be the lowest priority, and you might want to make that so that it's the one that happens last. Okay, so if we run our code now, you'll see they're still coming out in the priority order, where the low priority is taken to be the highest value. And that all comes down to our compare to method. It's how you compare the objects here and how you get the results back. Okay, so what we could do, we could just switch this sign around and make it if this task's priority is greater than the object task's priority, return a -1. So we just change that sign there. That's all we had to change. And that's it. Now a high value for priority indicates do it first. But until we change that sign there, a high value for a priority meant do it last. Okay, now we've made it so it does it first, because it's if get priority is greater than the object we're comparing to's priority, we're going to return -1. So we've changed the way things work here with our comparing. Okay, so now we should see 10 come out first. And there it is. Okay, so we've changed the way our priorities work now. Now high values are high priority and low values are low priority. So we just change that by just changing that one sign, a less than to a greater than. That's all we changed. Okay, so hope that was useful. I'll put this code up on GitHub. So I'll put the original priority queue test with the low value means a high priority. I'll put this one up as well with the high priority equals the high priority value equals a high priority, not a low priority, and just see how you go. So you can follow these through if you want to. Okay, hope that was useful. Thanks for watching.